Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's lecture, lecture 10, I think it's lecture 10, it's been a while. We've been busy with the game jam. I am sorry for not uploading a video, but here we are again. And in today's video, we are going to talk about lighting. Now, lighting is a crucial element in Unity or in game development in general. It's one of the most important lecture to understand. And in today's video, we're going to cover different lights, different type of lights, different light modes, and what is baking. So let's get into it. Now in this video, I will be using this template, which is a template from the studio. So if I go to Highrise Studio and I try to create a new project, you can see it in here. It's called Magical Cottage. And there is also nightclub, and there's bedroom, cafe, and club siren. Those are really good. Even the crystal caves, those are really good to understand lighting if you were to understand lighting, if you want to check lighting. Anyway, so let's head back to our project. Now, in here, you can see that this scene has a beautiful, really good lighting, and we are only using a few of them actually here. First, let's do something. So I'm going to go to the window, and then I'm going to go rendering, and I'm going to hit lighting. Now, this will open up the lighting panel, which we will be using later, and I'm going to drag it and put it in next to the inspector. I'm going to go to window again, and I'm going to go to rendering and to a light explorer. And I'm going to move this and put it here. Now you can put this wherever you want. Now what this does, basically, it gives you all the lights that you have in the scene. You can change them from here instead of clicking on each one and going to them, which is really useful. It has a bunch of options here you can choose from if you're using light probes, reflection probes, and I'm going to explain about that in a bit. Anyway, in here you can enable, disable, you can click on them to just hover or like see where they at. You can change a bunch of settings. Anyway, now that our project is set up to start working with lighting, let's explain different type of lightings. Now, first, how to create a light. So to create a light, you will have to go to the hierarchy, right click, light, and here you have a bunch of different options to choose from. There's directional light, point light, spotlight, area light, and then the reflection probe, which is not basically a light, it's just a reflection. And then there's the light probe group, which we will explain about in a bit. Now, let's start with the directional light. If you were to create a directional light, you basically hit directional light, and this will create this object for you. Now, what is directional light? Directional light basically simulates sunlight, causing the parallel light rays across the entire scene, and it's useful for creating a consistent source of light, like the sun, for example, which will affect all the objects regardless of the distance. So basically, let's say you have this directional light. Let's reset its position back to 0. Now, if I move this here, it will still cause the same effect. It's just the rotation that matters here. So you see how the rotation is going, the direction is going. Now, if I were to put a light here, which is the directional light, it will basically make the shadow go this way. And if you rotate it, let's just rotate it, or actually the X. Yeah, so if you rotate it this way, the shadows will go this way, and so on. Right now in this scene, we are not using the directional light. But if you were to add shadows for the objects, you go to the properties in the directional light, which says shadow, and you can choose soft to hard shadows. Now, soft is basically better because it's better performance. You can also choose hard shadows, but this will cause a bit of performance issue. And then you can also change the mode, which you will have to change the mode because we only accept baked light in Unity or in Highrise Studio. And I'm going to tell you why in a bit. As for the emission, this is basically what color do you want this object to be emitting? Is it white? Is it like a sun color, for example? It could be anything. And then there's the intensity. The intensity is what you usually go for is 0.8, 0.5. You will basically mess around with this however you want. You can play with this numbers a lot, so you find what's best for you. And again, remember, you can change it from here. If you go to the light explorer, you can change it from here. Now that's all for the directional light. I'm gonna remove the directional light. I'm gonna add a point light. So right click, lights, point light. Now this is huge. Let's just move it a bit. Okay. So this is the, by the way, if you don't see the gizmos like that, you make sure you click on this toggle visibility of all gizmos in the scene view. And if you don't have this, you click on this and you find the light. So if I uncheck this, it will basically show. Anyway, so select the point light again. Now, what is point light? Point light emits lights in all directions from a single point. It's similar to the light bulb, and it's great for creating localized lighting effects, and it can illuminate objects uniformly from all directions. So for example, if you have this one here and we have a bunch of different objects around it, it will just basically illuminate all the objects around it. And I'm gonna give you a real-time example here. I think we have a point light here, yes. So basically you can see here that this is a point light, and we are using it as a light bulb in the corner, and you can see here that it's basically giving light to everything around it. It basically not giving, of course it's not gonna give behind because it's only, there's like a wall, but basically that's what point light is. And we have another one here. Now this one is small. You can see it's also giving light under, above, and on the sides. And you can see the intensity is not even that big. Anyway, so let's explain the properties. Again, make sure you change the mode to baked. And the color is basically what colors do you want it to emit. It can be anything. Let's say green, for example. And then there's the range. Now the range, you can also change the range by clicking on this little square. Or you can change it using this slider, or you can just write a number here if you want. It's really up to you. But again, you can experiment with this however you want. You usually don't have like you can see here, each spot has a different range. It's not always the same. So just you make sure which one you want to work with, and you try a bunch of different ones. You can see it, for example, this one here is giving a bit of more range because it's also emitting to a far more distance than the other ones. But yeah, you configure that however you want. And again, the same thing goes for the shadows. If you click on soft shadows, it's just going to emit shadows, and if you click on hard shadows, it's also going to emit hard shadows. Now let's move to the spotlight. Now to create a spotlight, basically right click, lights, spotlight. Now this is the spotlight. Now spotlight basically emits lights in a cone shape from a specific point, just similar to a flashlight or a stage spotlight. Now this is basically used to focus light on specific areas, which creates dynamic lighting effects. So for example, if you have a stage and you just want to emit light to that stage, you can basically move this like this, and you can rotate it this way, and this will emit a light and it will hit the ground right here. And in here you can change the radius or the inner angle, and you can also change the outer angle however you want. And again, you switch the mode to baked, and in here you can see you have outer angle, and then there is the inner angle. So you can configure that however you want. Again, the same settings applies to all. The color, what color do you want this to emit? The intensity, and then there's the range. Again, the range can be how far it is, and then there's the shape and the shadows if you want it to emit shadows. Now the area light, which I don't see a lot of you using, if I go to light and then area light, now area light only comes in a baked mode. There's no real-time mode, so I don't have to change that. Now the area light is basically emits lights from a flat or volumetric surface. It provides soft, diffuse lighting that simulates light emitted by objects like a window, for example, a TV screen, a chimney, it could be anything. And this type of light is just great for enhancing realism, especially in indoor scenes. And I think I'm using one here. So basically, if you look at this area, I'm using an area light to just emit a light directly coming, a soft one. You can see here that's very soft coming out of the chimney, and it's also lighting the chimney from the inside. And this is because I have an intensity set to 50. Even the intensity is set to too high. It's still causing this soft effect, which is really nice. And the area light can be changed to, where did I create that? Okay, so the area light can have different type of shapes. It could be a rectangle, and again, you can just adjust it from here, or you can do it from the inspector, and you can change it to a desk as well. It could be anything really. And then again, the cast shadows, turned on, it will cast shadows. Then the color, if you want to change the color, the intensity, and so on. So that's for the area light. Now there's one more thing I want to explain. It's the light probes. Now the light probes are basically, first to create them, right click, light, and then there's light probe group. Now this will create basically a light probe group. I already have one, but you can see here that when you create a light map probe, you can edit the light map and you can basically move these around. Now I'm not gonna explain much, or you can just basically just do select all, copy, and just keep copying it to create this it's like network shape something. I don't know what to call it. Anyway, if you are looking, I'm gonna delete this one for now, and I'm gonna select the light probe group that I already have in this scene. So you can see it's scary when you look at it, but it's actually pretty simple. Basically, what light probes does is, light probes grip is just, or in Unity, it captures and apply lighting to moving objects in areas. Since we're not using real time, like I said before, we are using baked, which I'm gonna explain what baked is in a second. Light maps helps us just reflect or apply lighting to moving objects like avatars, or if you have like an animated a cube or an animated object, it will be just basically help and give this object a light. Okay, now that's done, we explained everything about the lights that you want. Now let's move to the lighting tab. In the lighting tab, if we move to the environment, you can see here that we have a skybox material. Now skybox, I think everyone knows what skybox is. Skybox is just the surrounding image or background behind the scene. So basically, you can, this could be anything, literally anything. You can just go ahead and put a door material in here if you want, but then you will have to just make it skybox. But yeah, anyway, for now, I'm gonna use the skybox material that I have. I have previous tutorial on how to use skybox. So if you want to check that out, I think it's in the assets tutorial. Anyway, so the real-time shadow color is basically, it just explains itself. It's just the real-time shadow color, what shadow will be emit to the scene. And then there's the environment lighting. Environment lighting has ambient color. Now the ambient color is a global light settings that provides a base color of light for the entire scene. Now this basically ensures that there's no areas that are completely dark in the scene, and you can just click on it and change it to whatever you want. Now you won't see changes unless you go into play mode, and this could be skybox color, and it also can be a gradient. I prefer gradient. I usually go with the gradient, and then there's the color. Now I'm gonna hit play and just see what this is gonna look like. Now you can see here, this is my game view below on the left side. I'm just gonna move it for you to just see what's going on in here. Oh, that's nice. I haven't seen this update yet. You can now see the update. That's great. Anyway, so this is the ambient color. I'm not sure, does it change in real time? It should, no? Well, it's not changing. Anyway, I think it's because of the light. I think it's because of the light probes. Anyway, you got the point. Now, what is baking? Now, if I go to the baked light maps, you can see here that I have two files or two textures. And if I go to the scene and if I select this material or material shape icon and I click on baked light maps, you can see here that those are the baked lights that we have. And it's similar to the textures that we have over here. Now, what is baking? Now, baking the lights in Unity means pre-calculating and storing the lighting information for a scene. Now, this process will helps improve game performance by handling complex lighting data or effects ahead of a time, so they don't have to be calculated in real time during gameplay. So it will be stored, and whenever you load a game, it will load this texture and you will see the lights The only disadvantage of this is that you can't have, for example, an avatar moving and then there's a shadow moving with the avatar as well. Or, for example, you can't have a flashlight that turns the light on and off because it's basically baked and stored in the scene and it's not in real time. Now, light maps are basically a pre-made textures that stores lighting effects, like we said before, for only static objects and making the scene look better without slowing down the game. So if I select, for example, this object right here and I go to the inspector, you can see that this object is set to static. And that's because this object is calculated or in the texture or the bakelite map. Again, this one as well. Now, this one as well. Not the one inside because those are particle. If you can't set particles as static because they will not move, but this one is set to static. There are a lot of things that sets to static. Pretty much everything in the scene I think is set to static. Now this is the lights. Yeah, static. Again, if for example, let's say you have this object right here and you don't want this to be included in the light map, you just remove it and you don't set it as static. Does that make sense? Now let's go back to the shaded view and go back to the lighting. Now how do you bake the lights? You go to the scene, and in this scene you make sure that you have lighting setting assets. If you don't, you click new. And in here, in the light mapper, I'm going to select a progressive GPU. I'm not going to use the CPU because my GPU is better. And I'm going to scroll down, and in here you have light map compression. You can either use high quality or normal quality or depending on your needs. And then there's the light map resolution. Now, when you first load into the project, this might be 40. 40 is a lot. So you will have to change that to 20, or it could even be 15. Now, this is because you want to keep regenerating the lights every time you apply a new light. So you will have a lower number, and when you finish building your world, you will basically bump that number back to 20 or even 40. But I suggest you keep it around 20. 20 is the best. And then you can either click on here, this arrow, and then clear bake lights. And if I clear the bake light, look at this scene. It's dull. Everything is just gone. So click on generate lights map again, or generate lighting, and you can see how this will, what this is gonna look like. Look at this. To be honest with you, I am not completely sure why when I baked this, it became very bright. I think this is a bug with the template itself because it's outdated, but there is a quick solution that I can do. I don't think you'd have the same, but in case you had the same issue, I want you to go to edit, project settings, then move here, and you change the gamma to linear. This will ask you if you want to change the color space to linear. So I'm going to click on linear, and this will basically break the entire scene. Now that's fine. You click on generate lights again, and this will fix it. But then you will have to change it back to, okay, 1 second. And then you will have to change it back to gamma. So when you change it back to gamma, it will fix the lights. But if you bake again, this will break again. And I'm not exactly sure what was happening, but I can see here we have some intensity, like higher intensity. For example, the spotlight. So if we set the spotlight to 5, I'm not sure if changing these will actually fix the issue. But let's just try lowering them down and generate. I think it's gonna break again. Well, it's a bit better. I think it's the intensity what was breaking it. Yeah, I think it's the pretty much. I think it's the intensity. So yeah, stick with the lower intensity. I think that was an issue with the template itself. But anyway, that's how you bake lighting, and that's how you change the light map size and the compression quality. But anyway, if you go to the inspector now and you select any object, so for example, if I go to the scene, now you have to mark the object as static if you want them to be to have lights. And if you want this object to cast shadow, you will have to enable the cast shadow. It can be off, and then you have to put it on, and then you have to change the receive global illumination to light maps. And there's another thing that you have to change here. You can see that this object has a mesh filter. If you click on the mesh filter, it will take you to the project, or it's like the root for the object. And you click on the object itself, You scroll all the way down and you make sure that generate light map UVS is enabled. Now, why enable them? You should enable this object when you have complex static objects that needs precise lighting details, like this one, for example, and you are only using baked light to optimize performance, of course, because this only works with light maps, only baked light maps. And the automatic and what is the UVS basically? It creates a second set of UV coordinates for the light maps, for objects specifically for light mapping. And now this will make sure that the lights and shadows are baked into the objects correctly and don't overlap improperly, because if it overlaps, it's gonna cause like visual issues. So make sure you enable the generate light maps UVS, and for every single one of them, if you go here and you select the cylinder and then the cylinder and you scroll down, you can see here that this is enabled. So that's everything you need to know for about lighting. The light probes. Again, I said I'm not gonna explain much about it because there's a bunch of videos online on how to set up light probes, because this video is getting long already. But you don't necessarily have the light probes. It just gives you this realistic view. Same with the reflection probes. So you're gonna find a bunch of YouTube videos on this, but just use these tricks or tips on how to set up lighting in your scene, and it will work. So again, basically you need to set up the object as static. Just make sure that if you have an animated object, don't set it to static because it will stop animating. And if you have, for example, if you have an object that doesn't move and you are 100% sure that this object will stay in this position, set it as static. And that's pretty much all. I'm sorry for the long video, but I think that covers everything about lighting. If you have any question, please let us know in the Discord, and I might upload a better version of this video actually with more details, but this is good to get you started. I will see you in the next lecture.